Should be live. If you're watching us on Chabad.org or on my personal page, please say hi so I can see that we're live. Everyone's seeing us. Let me open up the document on my computer. Did I not bring my Zohar? There's a Kabbalah, there's a book of Zohar, a red book on my desk. Some papers inside it. Bring the book with the papers inside it. It's either by the printer or on my desk. It's a red book, only Hebrew. Okay, if you're watching us, please say hi, Chabad.org. Waiting to see some comments. And on my personal page. Not that. It's a hardcover red book with papers inside it. Okay, ready, my friends? Let's see if we're getting some comments, if anyone's watching on this fascinating topic of reincarnation. Sorry, of soulmates. Andrea's watching. Good evening, Andrea. Good evening, Stephanie. Good evening, Ravit. And good evening, Corinne. We got a crowd watching us online, which is great. No. It's a smaller red book with papers inside it. Okay. Good evening, Tova. How are you? Good Shavua Tov Art. How are you? I didn't bring in the... Okay. Good evening, everyone. Okay. Good evening, Kim. Good evening, Alice, coming to you live from Baltimore. I love it. Baruch Hashem. Good evening, Florence. Hi there. Okay. Ready, my friends? Chaim. Yes. Thank you.
It wasn't on your desk.
Was it by the copy machine?
On you, by the window with the computer.
That's my desk. Yeah, that's where I work, by my computer. Okay. So, my friends, we got here the Zohar. Then we're going to do some Zohar, some Kabbalah. I don't even know if there is a good English translation of this or not, but anyway, this is what we're going to be learning tonight. And the class is in good evening, Marsha. The class is in memory of Yitzchak Tzvi ben Yosef. It's a Shemesh Elevation. If you want to sponsor an individual class, please let me know. Good evening, Shira. So we're going to tonight be talking about one of the most challenging topics, something that people are always curious to know about, which is finding your bashert, your soulmate. And I have to say that a man hoping to find the perfect woman, I read, is like a woman hoping to eat food without gaining weight. Right? As likely as it is that a woman will eat and not gain weight is how likely it is that the man's going to find that perfect woman with everything he's looking for. Another joke about this. Steve found. I know. I did too. It's a joke. It's just a joke. I know. Some people have found the right person. That's what we're talking about Bashar. That's exactly what we're going to talk about tonight. The jokes are for those that haven't found it. Or for those...
Secret to a successful marriage.
Someone should warn them to behave, right? See, I don't have to behave because my wife is not going to watch the class, unless you guys snitch on me. But you guys wouldn't throw me under the... I'm just joking. I found my soulmate without a doubt in my mind. I'm married to my bashert. But for those that haven't found it, like this husband that says to his wife, I was a fool when I married you. And his wife, without missing a beat, says, yeah, I was just too in love to realize it. Okay, anyway. So here's the deal. A lady puts an ad in the newspaper. She says, looking husband wanted. Next day, she got 100 responses to her ad. You can have mine. Okay, that was good. Okay. I was ready for the one that was going to... Anyway, enough joking. Today is me in the Bible. So what's the connection to the Tzitzik Torah reading? We're talking about building a home for God. And the most important thing in building a home for Hashem, in building a home for God, which is not just a temple in the center of town. What is the ultimate home of God? The home, exactly, so the home that we all build for ourselves. The Mikdash Ma'at is really the miniature temple is not just in this beautiful building. It's in the individual home that each and every one of us make for our families. And the single most important part of making a mikdash, and making a sanctuary for God in your home, is the person you do it with, the spouse that you marry. So we have to discuss two things. Number one, how do you, what is exactly this Kabbalistic concept of your soulmate? What exactly is it? Is it real? Is it just, say a Baba Maisa, something your mother told you, your grandmother told you? What exactly is it? And then from a more practical perspective, if it's real, which obviously I'll give away the punchline. I mean, you all know that it's real. You've all heard the word Bashert and soulmate many times. But then how do you find it? How do you know if it is right, if it's not right? What about second marriages? What about divorce? What about people who never get married? And we'll discuss all of that, God willing. But first, let's start in the beginning. This Shabbos, I was learning some Zohar. Fascinating stuff. Truly fascinating. And the Zohar tells us as follows. It's in the middle of a much longer piece about the unity of marriage in general, and in Chodesh Tachas Hashemesh, there's nothing new under the sun. I'm not going to read it all inside anyway. It's a few pages long. But basically, here's the gist of it, where Rabbi Abba is saying that when people are righteous, they find their spouse right away. And he explains it as follows. How does it happen that you have soulmates? So he writes that at the beginning of creation, every single person every soul is a composite of male and female. And then God gives over the soul to an angel that's name is Lila. That's Lila. The Lila Shmei. Its name is Lila. Night. Lila is night, which is a time when children are conceived. So this angel it's not written clearly over here, but then the commentary in the bottom, this angel is in charge of conception, getting the seed that will become the baby. And when this soul is given to Lila, Ubishaita, listen to these words, in Nachsim, at the time that it's given over, Vismasnan, given into the hands of Lila, Misparshin, they are separated. The soul, or the conception of the soul, is separated into male and female parts. And sometimes this one is separated from this one. They're no longer together anymore. And sometimes this one will be first, or this one will be first, until they have to come and to reunite and to find the other half of their soul, which is why it's so difficult. So, and that's why the time of pairing comes. Only God Almighty, the Yoda Inun Ruchin Vinishmasim, who knows these spirits and these souls, Mechaber Loin Kibikadmisa, he reunites them as they were prior, as they were before. And that's what God announces when it says that God announces. Right? There's a famous time that God announces that this soul is destined to marry that soul. God is announcing it. And then when they become united, they become once again Chad Gufa v'Chad Nishmasa. One body and one soul, which is why it says that when man gets married, what does it say in the Bible? The man will leave his parents, the Dovak, who cleaved his wife, v'hayu l'basar echad, become like one flesh. So simply that's referring to giving birth to a child. The child born from a father and a mother is the one flesh that comes from the male and the female. But here the Zohar is saying it literally, that at the time that the male and the female, which are two halves of one original soul, are reunited back to their original source, at that time, they become literally Chad Gufa v'Chad Nishmasa, one body and one soul, Yemina Usmala Kidika Chazi, the right and the left, which is another whole concept, that you have the right side and the left side, which is about, in general, male and female, the right side, the left side, Chochma, Bina, the giver, the receiver, which will be a class on male and female. I'm not going to get into it right now. We'll begin Kach, and that's why it says, Ein kol chodesh tachas hashemesh, there's nothing new under the sun, the famous verse of King Solomon. What does it mean there's nothing new under the sun? The marriage of two people is not a new thing. It's not a new relationship that suddenly you met someone by chance or you happen to fall in love and now it's a new relationship. It's not new. It already existed from before your souls ever came down to the world. They were originally one soul. And then they became separated either by Lila or before Angel Lila got them, they already separated. It's not clear from the Zohar exactly when the moment the separation happens. And that's why marriage, according to the Zohar, is not the creation of a new relationship, but rather, what is it? A reunion. It's a reunion. two halves of one soul coming back together again to be all united. And the truth is that this idea is actually how the story of Adam and Chava takes place. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the story of Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve. How was Adam and Eve created? Well, it depends who you're talking about, right? Adam was created as a human being, and Chava, from the literal reading of the text in the Torah, was created from the rib of Adam. But of course, if you've been to my classes, you already know that actually, at the moment of creation, the verse says, Zachar nekeva bara Isom. The verse says that God created Adam, male and female, he created them. Meaning at the very beginning of creation, Adam and Eve were Siamese twins. They were already born as one, but they were joined together. The surgery that God did to make Chava into her own person was not the creation of a new woman from the rib of a man. She was there the whole time, but she was there as part of Adam's body. She wasn't a separate person. She wasn't a separate body. She was part of his body. And the surgery of God, when God put Adam and Eve to sleep, put Adam to sleep, is to separate Chava into her own person. She actually got the extra rib, which is why her body is wider, also to carry a baby. But Chava got this rib, and they became two separate people. So when we talk about marriage, according to Kabbalah, being a reunion of two halves of one soul, that's literally the way the first marriage happened. The first marriage of Adam and Eve was really the reunion of one body that had somehow become separated, reuniting back into one body. And if you want to think about it even a little bit more, when God created Adam in the very beginning, not only physically as a body of a male and female, but what was the energy of his soul, male or female? Both. Both. How do you know it's both? Because it says God created Adam in God's image. And what image does God have? A male image or a female image? Depends who you ask. Right? Both. Anyone says God is male, being chauvinistic is an idiot. And anyone says God is a female is also an idiot. God is not male or female. God is both. He's transcendent. He contains within him both male and female elements. And therefore, when the original human being was created in the image of God, that means that the original human being was a composite of both male and female energies. Which maybe one day we'll do a class on the right side, the left side, also Kav and Rishimu and Kabbalah. But we don't have time to get lost in that tonight because we won't get to all the questions on soulmates. But this is the beginning of creation. This is the beginning of the very first couple we ever are introduced to in humanity, Adam and Chava, who both on a physical body level and on a deeper spiritual soul level were a composite of one soul or one body, both, that contain male and female. God then does a surgery to separate them. In Kabbalistic language, as it's talked about a lot, it's called Nesira. Nesira is a separation of the two. And now you have this tension of life where the male and the female are trying to find their other half. Okay? So far, easy, simple, beautiful. However, and this, by the way, explained before I go further, this explains the itch that people feel to get married. Because the itch that people feel that they need to find their other, that they need to get married, logically doesn't really make that much sense. Because if you ask many people about marriage, what will they tell you? It's a trap, it's a trick, don't do it. Every married person is warning his single friends, it's not as good as it looks. And then what happens? They do it anyway. I heard a joke. So they say that for making marriages is as difficult for God as splitting the sea, right? The famous statement of the Talmud. So there's a joke about it. Why is it as difficult as splitting the sea? What happened when God split the sea? The first group of Egyptian soldiers ran into the ocean, and what happened? They started to drown. So why did the second group behind them run in? So what happened is, this is a joke, the first group of soldiers run in, and they start drowning, and the dry land is turning into hot mud, and their wheels of their wagon are falling off, and they scream to the soldiers behind them, don't come in, it's a trap, you're going to drown. And what did God do? He makes a second wave of soldiers running after this first. When the second group of soldiers scream back, Don't run in. Don't run in. It's a trap. What, the third group goes in, and the fourth line, and the fifth line. They keep on running in. As the people in front of them are drowning, they keep on running in. So too, everyone says, oh, in marriage, oh, and you have 1,000 marriage jokes, and everyone's complaining and kvetching. And what do? We get married. Why? Not because financially today, it used to be back once upon a time, women needed a marriage because they weren't able to take care of themselves, they didn't know how to fend for themselves in a male-dominated world. Today, Baruch Hashem, women are liberated, women can earn their own living, they can take care of themselves, they have protections. So today, men can get all the benefits of a woman. You can order food online, and you can have someone do your laundry and whatever. Like today, a man doesn't need a woman to cook. A woman doesn't need a man to provide for money in the house. So today, the societal need that each gave the other in earlier generations is not there anymore. From a purely logical perspective, and by the way, what I'm saying, sadly, many young single people say this, like as a philosophy. Marriage is an outdated relic of a previous time when people need each other to survive in the big world. But today it's much easier to survive. And today I can earn my own living and it's cheaper. Why should I have to share with the roommate and pay for his food and pay? I'll live my own. I'll do my own thing. I can go wherever I want. I can do whatever I want. I have no responsibility, no limitations, no problems. And from a purely objective perspective, if you were to lay it out on paper, today you can have sex without getting married. Perfectly normal. In the society we live in, I'm not saying it's normal from a Jewish perspective, but in the society in which we live today, sex out of marriage is as normal as going to the restaurant to eat dinner. And today it's easy to take care of yourself, even if you're living all alone. Maybe it's even easier if you're living all alone. So from a objective perspective, why get married? And yet there's an itch. It's a hard to explain deep psychological need that people feel that they want to get married, not just to reproduce. Today you can reproduce and have kids without being married, or people don't want to have kids. And it's not just financially because they want to have a roommate, but spiritually, the reason why people feel the need to get married is because they understand on a deeper level. They can't verbalize this. They don't have the language to express it consciously. But the real reason why people feel the need to get married is because they know they're missing the other half of their soul. And as long as you have that feeling inside you a little bit, even if you have your life organized and you have your bills you're taken care of and financially you're stable and socially you're active and all that, deep down you feel something is not there. And that's why people feel this need to get married. And by the way, that also explains the great joy of a wedding. Explains the great joy of a wedding. Why is a wedding so happy? Why is a wedding so happy? Think about it. Well, what happened already? They made a decision to live together. That statistically in America is more likely than less likely to not even last too long. Right? Reminded of the joke of this guy that's sitting and studying his ksuba, his marriage document for the rabbi. So his wife says, wow, you're so in love all of a sudden that you're like examining the ksuba? What's up? So he says to his wife, I'm looking to see if there's an expiration date on this thing. So today people get married and they spend tens of thousands of dollars on these huge celebrations. And it's not just the spending of the money. There's like a real joy and a real happiness. And it's like the happiest day of my life to get married. Why? I mean, it's nice. You're committing to live together. When you get hired in a company, it may be a lifelong position. People work in the same company for 30, 40, 50 years. There's no celebration. There's no party. Like, what's the deeper spiritual, not just talking socially, on a deeper spiritual reason? Why is there such an unbelievable joy that you feel at a wedding you don't feel at any other time? You don't feel at a birthday party? Like a reunion, exactly. And think about reunions. What's the most powerful reunion? What's the greatest joy? Just where two friends get a high school reunion? Imagine you have, depending on the depth of the relationship, and the more distant you were, the greater the joy is at the reunion. Let me give you a very extreme example. If you saw the videos of the hostages being reunited with their parents, you can't not cry when you watch those videos, right? Why are they so powerful? You never saw a kid not see his parents for 2 years? I know kids that, even though they were hostages only 50 days or whatever, even though it's 700 days, the worst 720 days, whatever the exact number is. I know kids that travel overseas and they barely talk. But because they were so distant, not just physically distant, but I'm saying emotionally distant, they didn't know if they would ever see each other again. They couldn't see each other, they couldn't talk to each other, they couldn't communicate with each other. And now they're reuniting because they had been so close. And because they had then become so distant and so far from each other, emotionally far, unable to see each other, communicate with each other, know what each other was doing. And now the moment of reunion is just the emotion of it is intense. It's overwhelming intensity. And that's exactly what's happening when two souls that had originally been one soul are now finally, after years and years of separation, each wandering in their own journey, in their own orbit, in their own, so to say, life story. And now finally, these two souls that had once been one whole are now becoming reunited together as one. Wow. The intensity of that reunion is intense. The emotion, the joy, the deep felt emotions that come naturally pouring forth when you see two siblings or a parent and a child that didn't talk, that weren't able to talk because the kid was in captivity, or a soldier went to war and they returned from war. There's such an intense bonding and reunion at that time. That is the spiritual reason why marriages have such intense emotion to them. Not just because they're planning to marry each other. Okay, they're going to have a family together. And maybe they will or won't get divorced in 5 years. The intensity of the emotion is because on the soul level, two souls that had once been whole, that had become so distant, are now finally re-embracing, reuniting, reconnecting. And that reunion is very, very powerful. Okay, so far, makes sense, right? This is all the easy stuff. This is all okay, very good. Kabbalah says, and of course, there's a lot to say about this, and that Rizal talks about this, but this is the idea is there, that according to Kabbalah, we are reuniting with the other half of our soul, which is why it's such an intense emotion, etc. I see some comments. Danielle says she wants to get married, so she has a man to annoy, which is probably a verbal expression of a deeper feeling that you need a man to feel whole in your life. Without that man to annoy, there's a feeling of incompleteness or unwholeness. I don't know if those are correct words. That is making a person feel so far apart. Okay, so someone else is asking that they read in Kabbalah that the soulmates' birthdays are 40 days apart. That's not true. What you're probably misremembering or mishearing is the Talmud says, and I'm going to talk about this soon, the Talmud says that 40 days before a child is born, a heavenly voice comes out and says, so-and-so is destined to marry so-and-so, which is going to kind of lead us into the next question. Let's see if any other questions here. So Mary, stay. We're going to hold that thought for 1 second. I'd to everyone watching from all over the world. I'm glad you're with us. So let's get to the many, many, many questions that arise from this principle in Kabbalah, which is not only Kabbalistic, by the way, it's in the Talmud too, that we already have, so to say, a predestined or predetermined other half to our soul. What's the problem? And there's many. What are some of the problems? First of all, how do you find it? Okay. How do you know if it's him or her? You can get married. I can show you many people that got married, and the person they married was as soulmate seemingly as possible. Right? Actually, many people that got married and got divorced with terrible marriages. And then what about second marriages? Yeah. There's another question, even bigger, a more fundamental theological question. 40 days before you're born, so I just told you the Talmud says a very famous statement that 40 days before a child is born, it's the Gemara in Saita, heavenly voice comes out and says that so-and-so is destined to be married to so-and-so. What does that mean? That you have no free choice. I hear Steve making trouble. You have no free choice. That's after. You have no free choice. Seemingly, the greatest decision, the greatest choice that we ever make in our lives is the choice of who to marry. Right? Seemingly, that is the greatest, most consequential decision we're ever going to make. And this statement of the Talmud that says that 40 days before you're born, a heavenly voice already determined this soul is going to marry this soul. And based on what we're saying according to Kabbalah, it's not just a heavenly voice said. It's the other half of your soul. So you don't have free choice in marriage. Oh, very good. Very good. Okay. So you have a question, yes.
So is it necessary that you do find that other part of your soul every lifetime?
Is it necessary to find that other half of your soul? Good question. Good question. Very good question. What if you don't find it? Is your life incomplete? Very good question. So all the questions, what about second marriages? How do you know if it's the right marriage? How do you know if it's the right person, if it's not the right person, etc., can all be answered by first understanding this more fundamental question, that how does this idea of your soulmate already being predetermined, already being the other half of your soul, not contradict our free choice? One of the most basic ideas in Judaism is that we make our own choices in life, and we have the freedom to choose. Not just we make choices, we have the freedom to choose. So what's the pshat? What's the explanation? So the Zohar continues, and when you understand the next idea I'm going to explain to you, it will answer from there. We'll be able to understand a lot of other things. So the Zohar continues, so to say, expecting this question of what about the fact that we don't where's our free choice? And if you're going to ask, I'm reading direct from the Zohar. By the way, for the one, no, it's page 91, side B, volume 1. Hataninon. The same Talmud in Soita that tells us that a heavenly voice comes and says that this soul is destined to marry this soul, also tells us that your person you marry is according to your deeds. You marry a person according to your deeds. That's what the Talmud says.
I don't agree.
You don't agree? Okay. Okay. Depends. Okay. Let's see. So this is what the Gemara in Saita page 2 says. It brings two different rabbis, and the first one is that the person you marry is according to the deeds. And I really want to print something out, but the print is not working. Similar Saita, whatever. That the person you marry, I'll find the name of the rabbi in a second, is according to your deeds. So, how does that work? Is your marriage according to your deeds, or is your marriage according to your natural other half of your soul? Which one is it? Are you marrying the other half of your soul, which seemingly the other half of your soul has nothing to do with your deeds? Or are you marrying a person based upon your deeds? Yeah. Yeah. Haven't even said it yet.
The Talmud is suggesting that if you end up in a bad marriage, that necessarily you brought that on because your deeds.
Okay, let me read to you exactly what the Gemara says. Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, I found the Gemara here. Here's the Gemara. Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak says, when Reish Lakish would introduce the discussion about the sot, which is the woman that had perhaps possibly cheated on her husband, and we're not sure, and she's taken to the temple to be tested, he would say, heaven only matches a woman to man according to his deeds. As it is stated, for the rod of wickedness shall not rest upon the lot of the righteous. Meaning, you get to what you deserve in your marriage. Now, the Gemara then asks a question. Is that so? But Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Yehuda said in the name of his teacher Rav, that 40 days before an embryo is formed, a divine voice issues forth and says, the daughter of so-and-so is destined to marry such and so. And this is in such and such house is destined to be inhabited by so-and-so. Such a field is for so-and-so, etc. So how could you say that it's based on your deeds when in fact we see it clearly another rabbi says that your marriage is predetermined. So let's focus on the Zohar for a minute and then let's see if we get to answer the question. So we have a question here. You understand the question? Is marriage based on our deeds or is marriage based upon our other half of our soul? So this is the question of the Zohar. So the Zohar says, it's certainly this way. If you do properly and your actions are righteous, then you merit to find the one from which you came from, that you came out from. If you do good deeds if you do the right thing, if you live, I'll say my own words, I'm going to paraphrase, if you act in sync with your soul, it's not the words of the Rebbe, but I'm going to say in better English, if you live in sync with your soul, you'll find the other half of your soul. And if you find the other half of your soul, seemingly at this point in the statement of the Zohar, then you'll be happy. But if a person is going to act in a not proper way, and it's not explicit, but this is from the positive, you learn the negative, and they're going to be in denial of their soul, or they're not going to be in sync with their soul, then why would you find the other half of your soul if you're not living in sync with your soul? Let me say this as simply, give me 5 minutes, okay? Not a bad person.
See, that's how people are, I think, taking it. That, wow, I must have done some really bad sins that I didn't find. But
Yes, you're right. Marshall, you're right. And let me explain, okay? I'm not going to distract.
how you heard it.
Yes.
What? The what?
Right, I know that's how you heard it, but that's not.
So let me explain. What do you mean living? So let me explain what I wanted to say before you get distracted with the question that take me off of it. What does it mean to live in sync with your soul? Today, many people, when they start discussing marriage, what's the first thing they say? No. You present the name. You tell the guy, I have a girl for you. What's the first thing he's going to say to you? I want to see a picture. And then they have red line. What's the red line? She has to be at least 5'6". I don't know. She has to come from this family. She has to have this. She has to. And we have all of these ideas and illusions and fantasies in our head that didn't come from authentic Jewish Torah sources. They came from Hollywood. They came from some movie, some La La Land of Disney World. And we become convinced that the person I'm looking for has to have a whole bunch of checks that usually have nothing to do with their soul. And most people, not most, I shouldn't say most, many people, instead of starting the conversation, what's her soul like? What kind of person is she inside? What kind of energy does she give off? Let's just say. They start the conversation on the outside. What does her body look like? What is her waist size? What is her height? What is her color? What is her eyes, her hair? And we start the conversation not in sync with our soul. We start the conversation in sync with external things that are irrelevant to the makeup of your soul.
The animal soul.
Yeah, it's the animal soul. It's superficial. It's not even. It's external. It's external. And the reason why many people struggle to find their soulmate, and why many people struggle to get married, period, is, as I said in the beginning, they're looking for this perfect woman or a perfect man who's going to match and check off all of the boxes that they had in their mind. And very often, many, if not all of those boxes, have nothing to do with the soul. They're external. In fact, how does the discussion of marriage, how does the meeting of two opposites happen in today's society? We're sitting at a bar, we're sitting at a party, we're sitting at, I don't know, wherever we're at, and I see someone, and she's pretty, right? She catches my eye, and the two start flirting, and they change numbers, or they're working together, and the relationship begins from the outside. And that's the foundation of the whole relationship. A physical attraction, not an emotional connection, not a spiritual bonding. And so if a person starts with righteous deeds, meaning not that they're good or evil and cruel, if they start on a soul level of orientation, where their focus in marriage and their focus in life, actually, their focus in life is how do I live in sync with my soul? So your soul is more exposed, and you're looking to find the other half of your soul. Then you make it easy for God to help you find the other half of your soul, even though it may not check all the boxes on the external rating of our superficial society. However, if a person starts off life on the outside, and they're living a very physical, materialistic existence, and they're focused on physical things, and they're focused on earning money and improving their place in society and dressing well and looking good, etc., etc. It's not a criticism of any look at the society we live in. I'm not judging. I'm just saying this is how a lot of society begins the journey into marriage. So you're not living in sync with your soul. You make it harder to find your soulmate. And this is what the Zohar is saying. Again, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. That when a person goes, he does righteous behaviors, his actions are aligned to his soul. So then it's easy for the merit to find the other half of his soul from where he came out. That, yeah. And that's actually why he quotes the statement of the Talmud: the person should sell all their wealth to marry the daughter of a Talmud Chacham, meaning not that it's the right person, but since the Talmud Chacham is someone that God would trust your pekadon, your collateral with, meaning when you're focused and you're looking, not so much for the most beautiful girl, but for the girl that comes from a good home, righteous upbringing, and those are the things that are important to you, and you're living in sync with deeper, more true ways of determining who is the person that your soul is meant to be married to, make it easier to find your soulmate. Which means that even though we are already predetermined 40 days before we're born who is the person we're supposed to marry, that's already predetermined. What's not predetermined is if we're going to choose to go in that path, or we're going to choose to focus on other things. And that's why there's many people who are introduced to their soulmate. God makes it that their paths will somehow cross, but they never consider it. They never take it further because for whatever reason, it didn't meet the external. I didn't like the picture, or she's not from this group of people, or whatever the justification is. And sometimes God makes it hard to find that right person. It's not so simple, but let's go there in a minute. They struggle to find the right person. And that's how these two statements, and I'm not giving you the Gemara's answer, I'm giving you the Kabbalah's answer. That's the Kabbalah's answer, how both statements could be true. There could be a predetermined other half of your soul, and yet the journey to find that other half of your soul is directly dependent upon how in sync with our soul we live, allowing us to more easily or more difficult find and connect with that other half of our soul. Yes.
So do you think even if you're not living directly with your soul, do you think you still run across that person somewhere?
Yeah, 100%. God, absolutely. The question was, will you run across that person even if you're living a very materialistic lifestyle? Okay. So there's many ways to addressing this whole. I'm just giving you one perspective. I'm not telling you that. Let me just say something first of all. Everything I'm saying tonight is only one perspective. Okay. There's many, as I was preparing the class, there's many avenues and ways to go in understanding how soulmates work. It's not such a simple thing. This is the only way. But this is what I learned in the Zohar on Shabbos, and I've been reading up on it, and it makes a lot of sense to me. And absolutely, God is going to give you the chance to find the other half of your soul. It's in general, when we say that God gives you free choice, God doesn't give you a choice if you're going to be a man or a woman, if you're going to be rich or poor, if you're going to have a high IQ or have a learning disability, if you're going to live in America or live in Africa, right? God doesn't give you a lot of your choices are predetermined. The only thing you really have choice about is how to react to your circumstances, how to react to your situations. So if God wouldn't let you meet that person, then it's not possible. So at some point, the two of you will have to cross paths, or at least the name will have. Let's say when I met my wife, we didn't actually bump into each other. We didn't cross paths, but there was a process of matchmaking. So I wasn't planning on getting into tonight, where the whole externality is stripped away. The whole beauty, but maybe I'll talk about this for a minute. The whole beauty of the religious matchmaking process is that instead of the journey beginning from the outside and working your way in, where my relationship with you begins purely because you look beautiful. And I got attracted to you when I saw you at the party. And then slowly, we get a little closer, we hang out, and we start spending more time together. And so eventually, maybe we should live together. Maybe we should, or maybe you're pregnant. Okay, let's get married. Instead, it's the opposite. The journey begins focused only on the inside. Are these two people compatible spiritually, emotionally, in values, in life's ambitions and life goals, and in where they're coming from and where they want to go to. Oh, you're compatible. Now let's see, go and meet each other. Is there chemistry? Is there a connection? Which is why people can also, even in the religious world, you can go out with a girl and you go out with 5 girls, and maybe it won't be the right one, because even though on paper it adds up and it looks right, if there's no chemistry and there's no feeling of connection, then it's not your soulmate. But on the other hand, you don't need to be deeply in love to say, oh, this is my soulmate. I wasn't deeply head over heels in love with Chana before I married her. I knew it was right. It made sense. There was definitely chemistry. And over time, our love got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger because we were meant for each other. Now, it's possible I could have gone out with a girl that would have been meant for me. I have many siblings that went out, and it wasn't the right person for them the first time or the second time until they found the right person. So it's not just marriage in the religious world. It's not just, oh, okay, you're two compatible people. Let's make you a shidduch. You still have to feel a sense of compatibility. There still has to be some attraction. But the attraction on the physical level is only after we already made sure that there's alignment and that there's going to be a shared common ground. Now we can take it a step further and we can see if this is indeed the right person for you or not. But there has to be that sense of connection. Have a sense of connection that you're going to the person you're supposed to be. Now, that being said, because there's a level of free choice over here, and because we are the ones that are making our choices and deciding how we want to live, this could explain how a person could get married to someone who may even be their bashert, who may have been their soulmate. And guess what? When they first got married, they felt it. They were deeply in love with each other. They felt this deep connection. They were like two little birds in the cloud flying away, right? And they were the cutest little couple. And for the first few years of their marriage, they were side by side. They loved each other, and they were like the thought of the happiest people in the world. And then 10 years later, they drifted apart. Either they're fighting or they're not fighting. Many marriages, there's no fighting. It's just, went 2 different ways. And they get divorced. Or they're living together, they're not divorced, but they're miserable. How could that be? If this is your soulmate, how could you be miserable?
Because one soul is developing one way and the other is...
One soul's developing one way, one soul's developing the other way. Okay. Or not developing. One soul is developing, one's not. One soul or both souls, you have to work on making those 2 souls that came back together. It's not just because like a magnet, I put you together and I can stay together for life. The end of the day, the way we were born was separate. And this keeping together the 2 halves of the souls requires a constant commitment and a constant making of right choices that allow my half of my soul to live in sync with the other half of my soul. And that requires compromise and sacrifice and patience and attention and many things that sometimes are hard for people that don't live in soul orientation, have a hard time doing. If you live a physical, materialistic life and you're into your own self-pleasures, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. I have to make sure I say this carefully and gently without criticizing anyone or judging anyone. But many people that are in terrible marriages or in divorces is because either one or both of the spouses didn't take the time to communicate to the other spouse, didn't talk to the other spouse, didn't care enough, didn't listen enough, didn't show enough sensitivity. And obviously, each one will one the other one more, but it usually takes 2 to tangle. And there has to be choices that allow you to not live a selfish existence, but to be able to be more soul-centered. I know this is harsh words, and I don't know how to say this without being harsh, but this is the reality. There are 2 soulmates that could be together. You married your soulmate, and then what happened? Somehow you grew apart, or it became too many fights. And he used to fight every other day. And why did that happen? For many, many, many reasons, but at a core level, there was a lack of that connection to each other. And that's why, even though originally they belonged together, they couldn't find a way to live together. That also could be. It could also be they weren't soulmates. It could also be they were in soulmates. And that's why there was so much friction in the marriage. Because why was there so much friction in the marriage? Because they never belonged together. So sometimes people marry and everyone will say this is a bad idea. Anyone with a brain will tell you this marriage doesn't belong. Yeah. And why do they happen? Why did these two people get married? Because they fell in love, which is a whole nother topic, which has bothered me to no end. You can't fall into love. You can only fall into potholes and into puddles. Love is something you have to build and climb up to achieve. It's not something you fall into. You fall into lust. You don't fall into love. It's impossible. You can feel a connection to a person as a soulmate. But so what happened? You had a marriage that was clearly not meant for each other. But they were in love. They know that they wouldn't listen to anyone. Okay. So that's a marriage that wasn't meant to be and it became miserable.
Sometimes it looks right, it looks good.
And sometimes it can be a marriage that looked good but was miserable. And sometimes it can be a marriage that was right and became miserable. The point of all of it is that at the end of the day, although God is in charge of, God, so to say, says who's the mate of our soul, there's one critical component that can mess everything up. Us. Us. Human beings. And this goes in all ways. It could be us making poor choices in who to marry. It could be us making poor choices to not consider marrying someone who's right for us because of superficial considerations. It could be us making the right decision, marrying the right person, and then making poor choices in the marriage. It can be a whole host of variety of ways. There's no one way that this goes down. No one way it goes down. You can certainly, sometimes you can tell if a marriage is if you have a marriage where people hate each other, and every time you see your spouse, it makes you crazy and it gets under your skin, then probably you don't belong together. Probably you married a person who's not your soulmate. And trying to live together with a person who's not your soulmate will not go very well. But I know marriages of people got divorced who told me, yeah, they both do. I know she loves me, I love her, but we can't live together. You know, for whatever reason. The details are irrelevant because there's so many varieties to this. Where people get divorced and they still feel a connection. And they still feel a bond. There's for whatever reason, they couldn't find the ability to communicate and to work on the marriage, but they still have a connection. It's not like they got divorced and I don't want to ever see you again in the rest of my life. I know people that got divorced and they're still friends and they still talk to each other. Perhaps, again, there's no one answer. There's no, like, this is the way it is. No answer, this is the way it is making it up. But perhaps they're still soulmates. They just made poor decisions and they had a hard time learning how to be more selfless in their marriage. And because they could be more selfless in their marriage or communicate better, be more sensitive, be more aware, whatever, again, the details are irrelevant. They ended up just doing the American thing, just, throwing it in the garbage instead of trying to fix it. And some people don't like working on themselves and they don't like working on their marriages and they have a hard time admitting something is broken. There's so many varieties. But this is what it means, according to the Zohar, according to this one perspective, when the Talmud says that the way we get married is based upon our deeds, that statement of Rabbi Yochanan, that's what the Gemara answers. He explained in the words of the Gemara. If you hold the statement of being married, the one that's meant for us, our basher, there's a first match where it's easy. But then if a person makes choice, I don't want to say this because the point is, because someone's going to take my words the wrong way. The point is, we have the ability to mess things up. That's the point. We have the ability to mess things up, messing up that we don't find our soulmate, messing up that we do find and we don't stay with them, that we find them eventually, etc. Now, very often, so let me say, so why do we need to know about the soulmate? Why does it help us know there's a soulmate? Very often, people are married to their soulmate. Very often. Not always. But it's hard to be married to your soulmate because it's hard to be married to anyone. And so what happens? When you start, and they say, well, I'm not happy. The fact that you're not happy is not proof that you're married to the wrong person. Just like the fact that you are happy is not proof that you married the right person. Being happy is not a proof of anything. You can be happy taking drugs. Does that mean you're doing the right thing? You can be happy wasting your life away and sitting, watching games instead of going to school, and you're happy. It doesn't mean you're growing, that you're doing the right thing. Have a better example I'm not going to say. Have to be careful tonight. So the point is, knowing this idea of soulmates, knowing that we have another half to our soul, knowing we have another half to our soul, sometimes is the impetus we need or is the inspiration we need to help us overcome the challenges, to realize we need to be a little less bodily focused, a little less self-focused, and a little more soul-focused, a little more selfless, and to be able to live in peace and in tandem with our other half. Okay. Two more things I want to say. Yeah. All I said is that the answer is yes, but I just, for all I'm going to say for right now is happiness alone is not the barometer of your spiritual connection to the other half of your soul.
So what else? Also,
What else? I mean, I have so much I want to say. I'm not saying. I'm holding myself back. Yeah. What?
connection is how, well, when you're happy with someone, it's the conclusion of a lot of things that come together that makes you happy.
So if your son, if your son, I have a question for you. If your son, if your son gets involved with, if your son gets involved with the, if your son gets involved with a gang, gets involved with bad kids that you know are a bad influence on him, you say, I don't want to hang out with those kids. So they make me happy. I enjoy them. They're my friends. So the fact, would you say, well, it makes him happy? I'll leave it alone. There are people that are bad for someone that are not their soulmate.
So what does make it right?
A feeling of connection. It's hard to know. We don't know our soulmate. At the end of the day, there is no way. So I should make this very simple. There is no way that we can ever know for a fact. Obviously, we can feel it when the person's happily married for 40-something years, or even married 18 years, 18th year at wedding anniversary, and you understand each other, and you compliment each other, and you care for each other. You know you're married your soulmate. You can know. But just because you're unhappy in the marriage doesn't mean you're not married to your soulmate. Depends if there's a feeling of, and it's hard to quantify this, there's an inner feeling of hatred and resentment that you sometimes it's like someone walks into the room and they you already feel like resentful and angry and like they get under your skin. Then maybe you should get divorced. And the Torah agrees that people can marry they're not soulmate. That's what the Torah allows for divorce. It's not like because you got married that means God only let you marry your soulmate. No, God lets you marry people that are not your soulmate, and then God gives you an escape mechanism to get out of it. The point is just that happiness is not the barometer. Because you can be unhappy and still be married to your soulmate. You just need to work a little harder to make it work. Get out. Yeah. All I wanted to say is that people can be in relationships or marriages that are not kosher marriages. And they may even be happy. But it's not their soulmate. Oh, wow, that's right.
But if you're happy and you have a healthy relationship, but it's not your soulmate per se, then what's wrong with it?
Because you're not meeting the other half of your soul. So if a person is living with...
If you're producing everything you're supposed to be producing from this marriage, whether it's children, happy family, whatever it is, then you're clearly on the right path, even though it might not be your soulmate.
And that is one of the biggest mistakes of American society. The Nafar just said, I'm going to repeat it now, because you think that because you're happy, that means it's good. And that's the American mentality. It makes me happy, so it makes me happy.
I don't live in Holland, you know I'm not that kind of person.
Yeah.
I'm not talking to you about an Hollywood movie. I'm talking about reality. You, like you said, you have a connection with the person, they interest you, you're attracted to them, you build a healthy home, but it's not on another universe, your soulmate. Then
I know many people. What's wrong with it? Okay, so I know many people
well, you know, what is
that.
the purpose of finding your soulmate? What is the purpose?
What is the purpose of finding your soul? Okay.
What does it in the next world something happen? What is the purpose?
So the purpose of finding your soulmate is to complete your soul. As long as a person has not found their soulmate, their soul is half. Their soul is not complete. And therefore, because their soul is not complete, their soul is missing something in its spiritual journey and will have to come back again until it finds its other half and finishes its journey coming back to the way it started. That's why we come to the world. We'll have to come back again. It has to finish its journey in wholesomeness. So I'm going to say it as it is. You know, the fire. So I'm going to say it. If a person marries a non-Jew, if a person marries another male, a man marries a man, or a woman marries a woman, they may be very, very happy. And that's beautiful. But that's not the other half of your soul. So I know many marriages of a Jew and a non-Jew, and they're having healthy kids and normal kids, and there's a normal, stable home, and it's a beautiful thing. I mean, beautiful. I'm saying it's a beautiful home. Everything is perfect. But the person's soul has not found its soulmate. That person's soul has not finished its journey and it's missing half of its identity is being left somewhere. Even though it feels happy with this person who is clearly not the other half of its soul. Either because of the same gender or it's not the same religion or whatever.
How do you know that the journey is not like the Shemitah year where it needed to get, like it needed to go through whatever went through to the next soul?
There you go.
We don't know. We don't know. So to answer Steve's question, maybe the soul was not meant to find its other half in this lifetime, right? That's your question, right? So we don't know. And again, anyone that tells you, I know why God sent your soul down to this world is a liar, okay? They're selling you snake oil. I can't tell you, no one knows. So no one will ever know if you ever found your soulmate or not. But we have certain rules that Torah gives us and Kabbalah gives us that are meant to be the barometers of how you chart your journey in life, right? It's like in any sport, okay? In bicycling, there's certain rules how to train yourself. Now, could someone learn how to jog without following certain protocols? They could, but that's not the way you do it. So as a Jew, we're given certain grounds. This is the way you're meant to try and live a wholesome, fulfilled life where you fulfill your purpose and why your soul came to this world. And just because someone breaks that mold, we don't know how much they missed or didn't miss in their lifetime. Could be they missed the whole boat. There are souls that come down to this world and miss the whole purpose of coming down to this world. Right? Yeah.
This is a relatively modern or
I'm on such dangerous ground. I'm like, yeah. And one more thing, but yeah.
200 years of the concept of this. Because ancient Jews, they practiced polygamy. I mean, they could have 20
Oh, here's a good question. Okay. So Marie on Facebook, I saw the question. Actually, Lori also asked the question. Two people asked the question, maybe even more on my personal page. I have it open in front of me. Are asking a question which is connected to David's question, which is, well, the question on Facebook is could there be more than one soulmate for a widow or widower? And your question, which is connected in the same question, is what about in Jewish law, a man could have more than one woman, which would seem to imply that a man can have more than one soulmate. Excellent question. What?
Is it because we've lived before?
David HaMelech, King David, says about a king, he's allowed to marry up to 18 wives. Right? Which one's a soulmate? And so actually, and maybe this will be next week's conversation, A, because I'm running out of time, and B, I'd have to do more homework to give you I've come across, meaning as I was preparing, I came across the concept of King David and his 18 wives, and the fact that David was supposed to marry Bathsheba, but Uriah married Bathsheba first and took his soulmate, so to say, which is why it is possible for someone to take your soulmate. Someone could take your soulmate. And someone could earn their soulmate. There's a whole other perspective. There's more than one perspective to how this journey works, where a person could change who their soulmate is meant to be based on them changing themselves. And so maybe we'll continue this, but in short, the answer is because you have more than one soulmate. I don't know the correct answer to that question, actually. It's generally speaking, there's the other half of your soul. Now, souls are very, very big. Souls are not like black and white. Like souls are not... That's what I'm looking for. A book. Okay, a book is like, this is the book. It is what it is. Soul is ethereal, it's spiritual. It can reconfigure, reformat. Maybe we'll talk about it more. But here's what I did want to say. The Zohar continues, and maybe Mindy will be happier to hear this. The Zohar continues, and then the Zohar says, going to the next paragraph, about the reason how about the Gilgulim. I actually didn't understand this one line about the Gilgulim. And then how you have to get married. The Gemara says in Moed Katan that there's times of the year you're not allowed to get married. You're not allowed to get married, let's say during the time of the Omer, etc., because they're sad times. But you are allowed to get engaged during those times. So if you see a woman that you think is the right woman, you're allowed to engage her during that time. Why? The reason the Gemara gives is because maybe someone else will take her first. Which means that someone could take your soulmate. So you have to take it right away, whatever. And that's Al-Kula, Al-Kopanim. So at least the conclusion, so to say, is this says in the verse in Hosea, Ki Yesharim Darkei Hashem, that righteous are the ways of God. which means that not everything we understand, not everything in life is fair, not everything is explainable, and even though you can have a righteous person who deserves to find the soulmate right away, and yet God decides for whatever reason, I want this person to have a hard time finding the soulmate, or I want this person to be married to a person that's going to make them miserable and see how they deal with it. Or this is true not only in marriage; this is true in general. God puts people through challenges and tests, and God has His own plan, His own vision for what the world needs to, what each of us need to go through. So therefore, Rabbi Abba finishes these 2 pages by saying, 3 pages, Al Kol Panim, at least, what's certain is the verse in Hosea, Ki Yesharim Darchei Hashem, that righteous are the ways of God. Okay, that is how I want to conclude, because I know that this is a little hard. I know that saying you've got the right person, wrong person, your actions might be difficult with some people. God runs the world. God runs the world. Okay, I think we'll stop there. I know I'm ending on a little bit of a heavy note, but it's fine. Maybe we'll continue. Maybe next week, do something else. Any questions? Mark came in late. Define soulmate, please. In short, a soulmate is the other half of your soul. Mark, yes, tough questions. Tough question. Yeah, there's a lot more to understand about this, and maybe we'll have to go deeper next week, but it's going to be more complicated. So you guys can handle more complicated. Yeah, sure. Okay. Laila Tov, Christina Alicia from New York. Hello, Shalom. Luis from Sydney, Australia. Hello, Tom. Hello, Tova, watching us from, I don't know how to pronounce that. Hello, Carmen. Hello, Karin. Hello, Shira. Hello, Abe. Good Zol Upeating. Yeah, you have to guard yourself. You have to also pray. By the way, the expression, you daven good for your shidduch. People say the Yiddish expression. When you see someone that's happily married, you daven well. There's a lot of prayers involved. Thank you, Art. The soulmate always meant to be your spouse. Yes. Child depends not a soulmate. That's something else. Laila Tov Marie, Laila Tov Lori, Laila Tov Abe. No one wants to leave. I got it. You want more. You want more. Okay. I think we're going to continue. Then we have to do more homework, but it's okay. I like doing homework. Thank you, Dana. I hope you enjoyed. Laila Tov. See you all B'ezrat Hashem next week. Same time, same place, same station, same channel, just different jokes. Thank you, Andrea. Laila Tov. Thank you, Carmen. Okay.